it. That's it. One more night of action. And then we all get to relax. We get to enjoy the weekend, what comes with college, NFL football. And then all of a sudden, next week, everything changes. Everything. Well, not everything, because we're just going to keep overloading you with NBA content. My God, I think we have like 4 people on this channel putting out content each and every day when it comes to the NBA. So don't worry. We got you covered. Now, as far as where we are right now, heading into the final night, we're going to give you 3 more plays. We're 16-9-2. That's 27 games, 30 games total that we're playing, and we have the final 3 for you tonight. 16-9-2. We're trying to break the broom out and see if we can end on a positive note. So far, so good for the NBA preseason, and most importantly, thank you out there. I honestly, we had no idea how this would play out. It's the preseason. We know that there's a huge following and desire to play NBA stuff. So thank you out there for validating what we're doing. And the only thing we really ask in return is that you hit the thumbs up button and that you subscribe here as well to the fastest growing sports betting community across YouTube. Hey, I still have this offer for you where you can turn $10 into $200. I'm going to tell you about that at BetMGM. It's specific there with the NHL. But since we're betting basketball, let's go ahead and do this. This earlier was at minus 125. I know because I was slacking Ben Raza saying, I really like the Orlando Magic tonight on the money line. And then I saw this bump up to minus 150. You are on somewhat of, not the worst, but somewhat of a bad end of it. This is moving in the wrong direction. 150 is where I draw the line. If you want to lay 1.5 to win 1 for the Orlando Magic, yes. Why? Last regular season game, these things can go one of 2 ways. It's either we sat everybody the last night or 2, and now we want to ramp up with starters, or it's the opposite, which is let's give our guys one more big push, probably not playing much in the second half. For the preseason, a team like the Orlando Magic, it doesn't matter because they're heavy already set with their 2 rotations, starter rotation, bench rotation. We know essentially they play like 2 different squads each game. Injuries haven't mattered as much to this team because they're not so reliant upon 1 or 2 guys coming off the bench and meshing with the rotation. It's pretty much like a hockey shift where you take 4 or 5 guys off the floor. That's why injuries and depth haven't been a problem for the Magic. Also, they've played well, ending on a positive note. We saw that we went 1-1 last night. The Pistons did not match our expectations, whereas the Thunder did. And I think here the Orlando Magic will. Look, on Cleveland, you're going to get Evan Mobley, making his preseason debut. I know there's going to be a lot made about that, but 3 starters out, including Donovan Mitchell. You don't have Mitchell, Darius Garland, or Jared Allen. And once again, we're dealing with a team that's not bench heavy, if you will, rotation challenged, if you will, like the Orlando Magic. This is a team that's going to be relying on a little bit more back end guys just for this game. So that's all I'm saying. I'm willing to take the Magic minus 150 and not minus 2 because despite the Cavs losing a bunch of games in the preseason, they keep things close. These guys out there are playing and they keep things close. So I'm not going to mess with that by any means. This has dipped exponentially. Now, this total, I'm a little shocked here, over 221.5. That's pretty surprising, but we're going to go over that. Now, I'll tell you about that in a second because we have to tell you about what's going on at BetMGM. I'm just going to bring you on over to the hockey play here because $10, you can see it below me, right? Like, whoa, it just went from the NBA to the NHL. I got you. Here's what you do. Sign up below. There's a link that's going to bring you right to BetMGM. So you don't have to worry about, finding anything like that. It's going to bring you right there to the sign up opportunity. From there, sign up like you did for the book or books that you're currently using. I know you're not out there using BetMGM. That's why we're doing this for you. Broaden your horizons and give you a little bankroll to start things off. Here's the thing. You have to sign up, deposit what you'd like, at least $10, right? And then from there, go ahead, put a $10 wager on any NHL money line play. Red Wings making their season debut, their home debut. Canadians come off a big one. Playing spoiler here, plus 140 on the road, $10. Sure, why not? Here's the thing. Doesn't even need to hit. All you need is for either team to score a goal in this game, and you're going to win $200 right back into your account. And right back into your account. You're not going to be on customer service chats for a week. Yo, where's my money? Where's my money? Come on. This guy on YouTube, he even had a blazer on when he was selling me this. I knew something was off with that. No. You're not going to have to any of that. It's going to be right back into your account. Again, $10 money line wager on any NHL pregame. And then all you need is just one. That's it. One team to score a goal. That's all. It's a simple process, is it not? And look, what are we asking in return here, right? That you hit the thumbs up button, that you subscribe to be part of what we have going on here. I mean, it's a very simple process. Giving you a bankroll opportunity is our joy. It really is. All right, let's head back to DK. And here, gave you the over 221.5. Rockets, Pacers. Way too tight of a scenario here to play out. There's one determining factor that I do want to look at, right? No Jabari Smith still for Houston, although we have seen Jalen Green go on an absolute torch right now. Pacers, they're getting their rookie, Benedict, Big B, up in the house. He just cooked the Knicks, and you start to see this backcourt now starting to form in Indiana, knowing that both teams are looking at rebuild. Here's the thing with the Pacers and the Rockets, and I think there's one more factor that we can add to this why we go over 221.5. Both teams score. Both teams love to score. So when you start to look at some metrics here in the preseason, Pacers getting you $1.15 and the Rockets getting you $1.20. On top of that, Houston's defense is atrocious. I know it. It's the preseason, and I know it like they're going up against the Pacers team. How good can you expect Indiana's defense to be? Not much better. But Houston legit may have the worst, just overall points allowed. And then if you want to go deep into like Eric Lindquist type metrics, that too. But Houston is going to have one of the worst. By the way, that's not a rip.
Dude, that game yesterday, that was ridiculous.
The second half was entertaining, I thought.
Yeah, I saw you almost banked, man. That was so close.
I mean, you and I we held hands for fourth place, didn't we, on FanDuel?
Oh, yeah. FanDuel, I did pretty good. I was looking at the Millie Maker on DK.
Yeah.
You were like in the top 5, right?
Yeah, I got tied for third, three-way split.
Nice. That's cool.
I took the under.
Okay.
That was
Nice.
Yeah, it was like 38.5. I was like, go lower.
Good call.
Can you get more juice by going lower? Like, are you able? Is that an option in sports betting?
I don't know how to do that, and like with alternate over-unders, I guess I haven't seen that, but I wish it was. I would have taken 35.
I know there was for like the Timberwolves team totals. Yep, ready, Mike, whenever. Welcome to Stokastic's On the Contrary. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm joined as usual by DFS GOAT Alex Baker. You can find him on Twitter at AwesomoDFS. And our special guest today is Alex Sonty, a great DFS player who does some NFL and MLB content and was one of my favorite guests of all time on Jordan Cooper's Theory of DFS podcast. You can find Alex Sonty on Twitter at Alex Sonty. That's SONTY. And this show is sponsored by PrizePicks, which offers daily prop-based contests. While you're coming in, guys, please give us a like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Don't forget, almost all of our content is available in podcast form on your platform of choice. Help us out by leaving a 5-star review. Alex Sonty, I'll start with you. How are you doing today?
I've had a long morning, as I told you guys earlier. I cleaned up cat barf twice in 5 places. My 2-year-old took a shit like at the same time as he was eating his breakfast, and I woke up 10 minutes late. So it's only 10 o'clock. So we've got a long more day to go.
I woke up to snow today, so at least you don't have snow in Chicago.
Yeah.
Right?
No, we don't have snow. I think it's like 55 or something outside.
Yeah, I'd take that. But I mean, the 3 kids, I guess you've got your own issues over there, things you have to deal with outside of snow.
Yeah.
Alex Baker, how about you? How was your last NFL Sunday? How you feeling today?
What's up, guys? Yeah, last NFL Sunday, I didn't have enough Gabe Davis, and immediately got punished. So that was a long one, but I had a nice little showdown last night. Of course, when it's the hometown team, or not my hometown, but my now town, the Bears, it's always good to flex your sports knowledge for the team that's local. So that was fun. But this weekend slate looks like it's a whole new ball game, and it should be a really fun one.
Yeah. Alex Sonty, are you a Bears fan?
No, I grew up a 49ers fan because I loved Steve Young. And then I married a Packer fan, so I kind of have to be a Packer fan now.
Oh, God.
Well, you can't.
I regret inviting you on the show.
It's like marrying a Scientologist.
Yeah, what is wrong with
you just have to go along with it.
Yes, I suppose so. All right, let's start with some just general strategy. Alex Sonty, I'll start with you. Do you have any general strategy thoughts on this slate? Are you going to be approaching it any different than any other NFL Sunday, or is this just kind of run of the mill, make good lineups with good construction? Any overall thoughts for you on this slate?
When a slate has such massive ownership on cheap guys, I tend to scrutinize myself a little bit more in terms of exposure to those guys, because it's one thing when there's someone who's going to be 25% and it's Cooper Kupp and he's 9,600, and it's another thing when there's Ramondre Stevenson in the 6K range, or who is looking to be around that same ownership range. You can tend to see, I play a lot of single entry, so you tend to see the cheaper guys when they're chalk get inflated, almost double their projected ownership. Whereas the Cooper Kupp type of guy will go from 25 to 32. So it does change the whole slate when you look at it from a single entry lens and the price of the value of the high owned guys.
Yeah, I think I approach it kind of the same way with cheap chalk. Oftentimes I'm more likely to go underweight to the field with the cheap chalk, who are, essentially just chalk because they're cheap. Now, these guys, I wouldn't say that's necessarily the case. They also have solid matchups, but that's definitely something that I try to be a little bit more thoughtful about too. Do I really want to eat this chalk when it is just cheap? So I like that call out. How about you, Alex Baker? Do you have any overall thoughts on this slate from a strategy standpoint?
Well, I think this Buffalo KC game is where I'd probably start, because when you get two of the top offenses against each other, people are going to want to really jump on this game. And then what Alex was saying about the cheap value this week to make that possible, because you got guys like Kenneth Walker and Eno Benjamin that are stepping into huge roles at cheap prices. So I think this week will be all about having some elements of those things that are going to be really good plays, but just not falling into the same line of construction as everyone else.
Okay. Yep. I think that makes a lot of sense. As usual, just going a little bit different with the lineup construction. I think we can jump in now to going position by position. As usual, we will start with quarterbacks. And Alex Baker, I'll start with you. We start by talking about any chalk that you're willing to eat at quarterback. Of course, we only have one quarterback who's projected, two quarterbacks who are projected for more than 10% ownership. So chalk is a relative term, but anybody who's getting some ownership steam that you are willing to eat the chalk this weekend.
Oh man, it's hard to poke holes in Josh Allen because he's a terrific fantasy quarterback, given that he makes up so much of his team's offense, and it's a really good offense. So between him and Mahomes, I think we gotta lean towards Josh Allen because the team total of Buffalo is 28.5, Kansas City's 25.5. That's kind of a testament to Buffalo's defense being pretty tough. But they should put up enough challenge that Josh Allen will probably have to get in a lot of work this game. And this is a scenario where I don't think you really need to run him back because Kansas City does have very expensive players like Kelsey that it just might not be possible to get the Buffalo guys you want along with the Kelsey run back. So that's a good thing for us if other people are trying to really force that in.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought because this is a game where I think my instinct would be to run it back because, some games we see, playing against the Jets or the Steelers or something where it's I don't really know that any of these guys are going to get there. But, the assumption would be, well, Kansas City They do have expensive players, but also their players are more likely to, put up some fantasy points than the Steelers or the Jets. So that's a good call out, that because of the price tag, particularly with Travis Kelce, even if he does have a good game and puts up enough fantasy points that Kansas City stays in the game, he still might not be in that optimal lineup because of the price tag. That's Alex Baker for you. One of the best DFS players of all time. Spitting out some knowledge for us. How about you, Sonty? Are you willing to eat any chalk at the quarterback position? We don't have a ton of real chalk, but anything you like in the higher owned range players that you expect to get some ownership here?
I likely won't be playing Josh Allen just because the ownership is so crazy and I play single entry. So the ownership, you're looking at 15 to 20% depending on what site you're looking at. And that could get up to 25, 30%. And Stephon Diggs could end up being, 15, 20, 25% even. And, Gabe Davis, who knows what Gabe Davis's ownership is going to come in at. So, there's a way. I haven't completely X'd him out. But if I do play Allen, it would be probably with Davis and like Juju or something. And I don't really feel great about that.
Okay. So you're not likely to eat the chalk on Josh Allen. So that's a fade for you, Josh Allen.
I wouldn't say it's a fade because he's still in my player pool right now, because if there's a way to work with him, I can work with him. And another thing is you can work Josh Allen naked. He doesn't run as much as he did, 2-3 years ago, but you can run him naked. It's not impossible.
Yeah, you certainly can. We talk about that a lot on this show. So Alex Baker, I know, is a little bit opposed to running quarterbacks out naked just because, he likes that correlation piece. Would you consider playing Josh Allen naked, Alex Baker?
Probably not. Just because it's really hard to get the right wide receivers and tight ends, and it's even harder if you don't have it paired with your quarterback to have them both go off. So I kind of see these as parlays where you need each leg of the parlay to go off to win your tournament, and you can get it down from 9 to 8 legs by getting that correlation in there, which really improves your odds.
Yeah, and I should note that we also are possibly talking about some different contests as well. I know, Alex Sonty, you mentioned that you play some single entry. Do you play any smaller field GPPs too?
I play 100-mans. I play the $100 single entry. I play the spies, which go from 1,000 to 5,000 people. So it's
so it probably makes more sense to run out a guy like Josh Allen naked in those kinds of contests than the largest field GPPs where you don't necessarily need that correlation.
And I probably won't do it, but I can understand the argument for it. It's something that I don't do because, like Alex said, you start running out at 9-leg parlays, and that feels very dangerous to me.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense to me. Well, so we've talked about, some chalk you're willing to eat, and not a full fade, but a guy you're probably going to be underweight to the field on in Josh Allen. Alex Sonty, do you have any contrarian quarterback options that you're going to like this weekend?
I'll just kick into it, and there's going to be a running theme here. Joe Burrow. I think this line on the Bengals Saints game is very soft, and I don't understand why. I keep looking into this game, and I don't understand why. What's a 43 total? I think it is. The Saints defense isn't what it was in recent years, and even in recent years when it was really good, it didn't do so well at home. So I think there's a lot of dynamic players on this Bengals offense. I think they've yet to really come out with a 42-45 type of game, and they can do it this week, I think.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I still think of the Saints as having a pretty solid defense, but I'm just looking at their DVOA numbers from Football Outsiders. They're 13th in terms of pass DVOA, 13th in terms of rush DVOA. So kind of middle of the pack for the Saints defense. So yeah, it's a really interesting point that maybe the Saints aren't quite the defense that we think of them. Sorry, that's the Saints. I'm looking in the wrong spot. I'm looking at my week 5 games. Okay, so the Saints is correct. I need to pull up a new spreadsheet. I pulled up the wrong document here. But so Joe Burrow is a contrarian quarterback that you think you're going to get to. How about you, Alex Baker? Any contrarian quarterbacks that you want to play this weekend?
Yeah, definitely. Matthew Stafford. It's the same logic that I've been saying all the last few weeks where he has some great pass catchers and Higbee and Kupp that are always chalk, but he never gets ownership himself. So once again, we have him at 3% ownership this week, and the Rams have a 26-point team total. And they've been absolutely dreadful running the ball too. So like that kind of is another reason why they might throw the ball a lot. And if you get those 3-4 touchdowns from Stafford, then you're going to be in good shape. And then there's some other guys that are pretty contrarian that I'm feeling this week too. Kenny Pickett, he threw like 50 times in a loss last week, so that's the kind of volume that can get you there even on a bad team. And then Matt Ryan, it looks like he's getting really, really low ownership because the Colts have been like really bad. But he's got some decent weapons with Pittman and Pierce that have GPP potential. So I could see going there.
Any concerns with the Bucs defense for Kenny Pickett? I mean, first, in terms of pass DVOA, does that scare you off at all? Or is it just, you think he's going to be low enough owned that you're still just doesn't scare you at all?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's like likely to succeed by any means. It's like a dart throw, but the salary reflects that. 5,200 on DK, 6,500 on FanDuel, and then the sackability is another factor where you got Deontay Johnson, who's been getting a lot of targets, and Freiermuth at tight end is another reasonable option. So I think it's not a team that I feel confident in at all, but it's just kind of like it could happen, and that's good enough some of the time.
And I just want to go back to Stafford. So you mentioned that you'll be playing Stafford, and you're usually a proponent of double stacking Alex Baker. Do you think you will be double stacking with Stafford, or would you do some stacks that are just Stafford and Cup?
Yeah, I think double stacking is a great idea with like a guy like Stafford that he doesn't really add much fancy value running. So Cup, like obviously is a great play. Like Stafford Cups can definitely work out, but I think there's other good options on the team, like Ben Skowronek. He's someone that everyone always sleeps on, and he's actually been getting a little bit about the same passing reception volume as Allen Robinson, but he's cheaper. So between him, Cup and Higbee, and maybe even like a GPP sleeper and Robinson, I think you can mix and match all four of those guys. I probably have Cup in my lineup if I'm stacking Stafford though.
Okay. Yeah, Skowronek is a guy that I have been with you on Skowronek every week. I just keep playing him because I know like we just need touchdown variants to fall in our way. He's targeted so frequently near the end zone, and just every time it's like, oh, pass interference, or just doesn't go right to him. I think that game is coming for Skowronek, so I like that call out. I think I'm with you there. Alex Sonty, back to you. So you mentioned Joe Burrow, and I gave you the Saints defense DVOA number. So they're 10th against the rush, but still 13th against the pass. So the Saints defense, yeah, pretty middling. Closer to being a good defense, but not a great defense. But any other quarterbacks that you want to call out before we move on, Alex Sonty?
Yeah, I have two others on my list. One of them was Stafford. And kind of to piggyback on what Baker was saying, they have a rushing strategy of run to the line and fall down. that
Right.
can't work so well. There's only so much that can work, and so many times you can do that in a game. It has, even if they have a big lead, I think they're 10-point favorites or something.
Yep.
But if they're up by 13 in the third quarter and they run the line and fall down a couple times, then they're in 3rd and 9.
Yep.
And I think a lot of these 3rd and longs are going to come up for them just in the game script because they can't run the ball. And then another guy who we haven't brought up is Lamar Jackson. Usually Lamar Jackson is a chalk play, and it's like, why are you bringing up Lamar Jackson? But Lamar Jackson isn't projected for high ownership at all. He's projected in the 5 to 8% range. And I think in single entry, when the chalk goes up, the middle class or the undervalued players, they can go way down. So Lamar Jackson might be 6, 7, 8% MME. He might be under 5% single entry.
And are you inclined to stack with Lamar Jackson, Sonty?
Oh, for sure, especially this season, because he's throwing the deep ball like he did when he first came into the league. And, Mark Andrews has 70 targets this season, but also Devin DuVernay has 70 targets and he's cheap. So, it's kind of it becomes kind of an easy stack. I think they're an easier stack than we have been used to the Ravens being in recent years.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. They do have some real pass catching options this year that have looked pretty good. What about a bring back from the Giants? Think you would be inclined to bring back anybody from the Giants in your Lamar stacks?
Well, I don't want to touch Darius Slayton, and he might be the best option. So that's the one part where I'm weary about stacking the Ravens, because I would have to go to Saquon Barkley and hope that it's a tighter game. Because if it's a tight game, Saquon Barkley can get us 30 opportunities, and that's, it can be 5 targets and 25 rushes.
Yeah, right.
And he'll get there.
Yeah, that's a good call. Alex Baker, I'll go back to you. We got a question from Justin Dweppengeiser asking any Kirk Cousins interest versus a bad Miami pass defense. I brought him up on the Wednesday show as somebody I like. Do you have any interest in Kirk Cousins this weekend?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's another guy like Stafford that just throws to some really good players. So Justin Jefferson has been phenomenal. He's a great option, and that kind of elevates Cousins to the level of being a good stack target. And then Thielen, I feel like he's always had an knack for the end zone. I haven't been tracking like how many touchdowns he's gotten this year. It looks like only 1 so far. So maybe people will be down on him compared to what they should be. And I wouldn't mind taking both of them and hoping that Cousins has a high pass volume this week.
Okay. Yeah. Good to hear. Cause that's definitely a direction that I'll be going. And, you always have to worry. Am I just being a homer that I want to go back to the Vikings again? They did okay for me last week, but obviously we're not the stack that you needed, but I think that I will be going right back there as well. All right. I think that does it for the quarterbacks we're going to talk about. So let me tell you guys that if you are a new Stokastic Plus Platinum or NFL user and want to give our NFL tools a test run before purchasing, we have a great offer for you. Get access to all of our NFL DFS tools 100% free for 3 days. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools for NFL DFS that we have to offer on Stokastic.com, including new tools such as our lineup generator and player compare, as well as player projections, ownership projections, top stacks, our boom bust tool, and so much more. Click the link in the description of this video below to join to activate your 3-day free trial now. Please note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included with this trial offer. All right, Alex Sonty, I'm going to go to you again. Let's start by talking about some running back chalk. Is there any running back chalk that you are willing to eat this week? I know you said that, these are the kinds of slates that, you have to think harder about whether you're willing to eat that chalk on some of these cheap guys, but these cheap guys look pretty good in these spots. Are there any of them that you are willing to eat?
It scares the shit out of me, but Ramondre Stevenson, Kenneth Walker, and, Benjamin are just, it's glaring. It lets you do whatever you want with the rest of your lineup. And, that's where everyone else is thinking the exact same thing when they look at those names, though. So, I have to not only, have leverage with the other pieces of my lineup, I need to have combinations that are unique with the rest of my lineup, because the people who use these 3 running backs are going to use the same wide receivers. They're going to use the same quarterback. So do I want to eat chalk in like 8 spots in my lineup? So it might come down to a spot where maybe I only want to play 2 or 3 of these guys, but then the same thing comes up where everyone says, well, I'm going to play 2 or 3 of these guys and, jam in Saquon Barkley and do something else. And then I end up having the same lineup as all those people. So is maybe we're talking about being contrarian here. Maybe the contrarian play is to only use one of those, sprinkle them around, 1 in each, not double up and stack those values.
Yeah, I was kind of just thinking that, like, that might be an approach you could take if you're using an optimizer. If in my Fantasy Cruncher, I could go in and set a group that says use exactly one of these guys, Stevenson, Benjamin, or Kenneth Walker. I don't know if that's an approach that I'm going to take, but that's something that you certainly could consider, eating some of the chalk, because these guys are going to project so well point per dollar, but maybe not playing all of them. And that could be a way to get a little bit different, because I think a lot of lineups, as you said, people who are using projections are going to be using probably 2 or 3 of these guys in a majority of their lineup. So I like that call out to just maybe limit yourself to using just one of these guys, and that alone will be different enough, but you're still, getting to guys that project really well. Alex Baker, how about you? Any chalk that you're willing to eat from these running backs?
Yeah, I mean, I think those 3 guys that Alex named are all definitely the guys that we should be starting with in our lineups. The question of should we play, and then do we need to get a contrarian pick at running back in there is an interesting one. I think it's challenging because these Benjamin, for instance, 4,600. I think that it's interesting because Benjamin and Kenneth Walker are in the same game too. But Benjamin is like a good receiving running back, so there's really no game script where he should be in a bad spot. And the team has a 26-point team total, so really don't see how you get away from Benjamin. He'd probably be my number one based on the salary and the spot. And then with Ramondre Stevenson, another great spot. The one question in my mind is like if it's Bailey Zappi starting at quarterback on Sunday, or Brian Hoyer, I think that like there's a chance that New England's offense just does poorly, and like it'll be hard for Ramondre to get there. So he's probably number 3, and then Kenneth Walker somewhere in the middle of those two guys, where it seems like the price is very good and the opportunity is really good too. So it's hard to poke holes in that.
Okay.
Do you mind if I chime in for a quick second?
Yeah, go ahead.
With the Patriots, there's also the off chance that they just run the ball 45 times, which something Bill Belichick has done in the past, where he's, he has no passing attack, and he didn't do it against the Rams or the Chiefs. It was against a good team, and he ended up, edging out a close game.
Right. So you think he's going to run it fewer times or more times? I think I missed what number you said there.
I think there's a high chance that he runs the ball an extreme amount of times.
Okay. Yeah. I thought that's what you said, but then I thought I heard you say 4 or 5 times. So I was like, okay.
Oh, sorry. 45. It was like 45 times.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He could run it 45 times.
Okay. Yeah. And that would make sense against this Browns defense, 32nd against the rush in terms of rush DVOA. So that does make sense. That does seem like something that Bill Belichick might just, this is where they're weak. Let's just run it down their throats. That certainly would not surprise me at all. So that's an interesting thought. Alex Baker, I just want to ask you, does it scare you off playing both of the running backs? Like, are you opposed to playing 2 running backs from the same game from opposing teams? Is that something, because it seems like, it would have to be a low scoring or a kind of a slower game if both the running backs are doing well. So maybe that they kind of hurt each other. Is that something that you're opposed to doing, Baker?
Yeah, that's definitely something I consider. Like when the guys are extremely cheap, like Kenneth Walker and Benjamin, it's less of a concern because you just don't need as many points. But like a good example of a matchup where that would come into play big is like Cleveland versus Tennessee, where Chubb and Henry like both score almost all their points on the rush. So like there is a negative correlation between rushing attempts for each team. But like the 3 guys that are chalked this week all like receive the ball at a pretty high rate. So I think that is less of a factor like in this matchup with Seattle and Arizona.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. All right, so that we've covered the chalk a little bit. Alex Sonty, I'll go back to you and talk some contrarian running backs. Anybody that you like who's not getting a ton of ownership this weekend?
I brought him up a couple of times, and he isn't going to be low owned, but I think he's going to be under owned as Saquon Barkley. I see him around the 15% range, and I think this is the best fantasy running back we have right now. It's not the greatest team. It's not the greatest game. It's not the greatest script for him. But we've seen in how many years when a guy is just the top 3, fantasy running back, he just gets his every single week. And there's a reason why his price is climbing. And I think on DK, it's not high enough. I think it's only about 7,700.
Yeah.
So he's the first name that pops up in my pools as like under-owned. The next guy would be Leonard Fournette, who, Fournette, when they're in positive game scripts, he just gets fed the ball 20, 25 times. And, he gets targets no matter what the game script is. And, Tom Brady he knows how to, if he sees a blitz coming, he'll switch to the run, and he's not scared to do that. We've seen that happen multiple times this year on passing downs. So Leonard Fournette's going to get a lot of work. Saquon Barkley's going to get a lot of work. And it sounds like, well, that's not really contrarian picks. But if you look at the ownership numbers, they are kind of contrarian picks. They're going under-owned.
Yeah, I like that call. Let me throw a name at you, Sonty, just because. So Kane Smith in the chat brought up Devin Singletary. If you want to come off that chalk, do you have any interest in playing Devin Singletary in this game? It's expected to be a really high-scoring game between the Bills and the Chiefs. But maybe one way to get a little bit contrarian is to go away from the passing attack and play the running back in Devin Singletary. Do you think you have any interest there?
not how stacked this position is this week. I think there's just so much on this position this week that I wouldn't go to Devin Singletary. That's definitely a fade for me. And it's not, that he can't get to 15 points or something like that. It's just that there's so much going on in these like low sludge out games, with 42, 43, 44 totals that are tight spreads. Those are usually games where running backs tend to thrive.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I like it as maybe, just a way to get a little bit of leverage on the Buffalo stacks. But yeah, he's looking a little bit over owned in our tools at 5,900. I think just as you said, probably because of so many running backs in that price range or even cheaper that just are going to project better. So, I can see the merit to it, but I can also, I don't know how much Devin Singletary I will end up with. Alex Baker, how about you? Do you have any interest in Devin Singletary this weekend?
It's a little bit intriguing from a game theory perspective because I'm sure a lot of people will be taking other pieces of this game. But when you compare Singletary versus Ramondre Stevenson, Benjamin and Kenneth Walker, like he really pales in comparison from like a projection standpoint. So like you're really rooting that all three of those guys will like stink this week, which is the odds are just not in your favor that Singletary is going to be the best of that bunch. And like when I look at pivots, I'm more interested in pivots that create like a whole different lineup construction.
Mm-hmm.
So like a good example would be like a Jonathan Taylor, where like, yeah, it's bad that you're spending 8K at running back, and like he's been pretty bad, but like that upside of 30, 40 points can really like reach you to another level than some of the other guys like Devin Singletary.
Okay. Is that just an example, or is Jonathan Taylor a kind of contrarian back that you are interested in this weekend?
Yeah, I think he is. It's really painful because like I'm looking at the projections. It's like he's projected lower than Ramondre Stevenson at a much higher price. So it's really like I probably want to take one of those guys where it's a spend up where you're decreasing the projection of your lineup pretty significantly, but it's just like every week there's that one guy that gets like 3 touchdowns that completely breaks the slate. Like last week it happened to be Gabe Davis. This week really don't know who it is, so it's good to get exposure to all those superstars.
Okay. Yeah, I like that call. Any other contrarian running backs that you're interested in this weekend, Baker?
I feel like the chalk running backs are so good this week. It's hard to get too contrarian, but AJ Dillon, I guess. So like he's a guy that he got kind of phased out of the game last week. I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe we need to get Alex S to chime in as the husband of someone who's a Packers fan. But I think he's kind of the guy they've been giving the red zone rushing attempts. So I'm kind of interested in that because if Green Bay gets a lot of goal line touches, like he could come out of nowhere for a big game.
Okay. Sonty, do you have any insight there as to why AJ Dillon was not used very much last weekend?
I don't, but I wanted to pull this up because I stumbled on it this week. Aaron Jones' snap count. His snap share is 61% in week 1, 59%, 63%, 62%, 73%.
Yeah.
And it's a lot higher than I thought it was. I thought it was somewhere in the low 50s because AJ Dillon has had so much work. And the thing is, when AJ Dillon is on the field, he has a ridiculously high rushing share. He's only on the field for 20 snaps, but he'll get the ball 14 times. So I think that looks appealing to us when we just look at the raw opportunity numbers. But Aaron Jones being out there between the 20s there's still something to get. If you want to get contrarian with a Packers running back, there's something where he could catch a 2-yard reception and take it 24 yards to the house.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's within the range of outcomes, and I'm hoping that it was a little bit fluky that AJ Dillon was just not used very much last weekend. I don't know if that is if it was a fluke or if they are really trying to get to Aaron Jones more and not play as much AJ Dillon, but I think that's somewhere that I'm willing to go. We just got a call in chat for Jeff Wilson going against the Falcons. Alex Sonty, I'll go to you. We've got Jeff Wilson projected for 9% ownership and optimal 9% of the time. So it looks like a fairly neutral play, but the Niners are playing against the Falcons, 27th against the rush in terms of rush DVOA. Pretty bad defense overall. Do you think you have any interest in Jeff Wilson at 6,200?
I want to because he isn't terrible. but I just struggle with how much they're going to use him. You know, they mix in the Deebo Samuel stuff, and they do the little shovel passes because Jimmy G can't get the ball downfield. So those things take away from his rushing volume. And I think if his ownership were lower, like, 5-6%, I'd be like, fuck it, jam him in. But close to 10%, that just the opportunity cost with all these running backs on the slate, like Baker was saying, you need so many guys to fuck up that this just doesn't really work so well.
Yeah. And then Alex Baker. So you said you'd rather go, if you're going to pivot from those main three, you'd rather go to a completely different price range. Jeff Wilson kind of in the same price range. He's 6,200. Ramondre Stevenson is 6,000. So is he a guy that you think you maybe are not going to be playing a ton of because he does not get you to a different price range, or is he still in a good enough spot that you're willing to go to some Jeff Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, I have no strong feelings about Jeff Wilson. Like, he doesn't really catch a lot of passes, so that's really why he doesn't project as well as some of the other guys, but certainly has upside being the lead back in San Francisco. There are some other guys that we should consider, like Christian McCaffrey, where with PJ Walker starting this weekend, I think that is a slight downgrade for McCaffrey, but he's just a guy that has so much upside that there's still a lot of potential there. And then he's only getting 8% ownership this week, so that's kind of intriguing.
Yeah, I think McCaffrey is always in play. You mentioned him last weekend. He scored a touchdown against the Niners last weekend. So against the Rams, I think that he should be able to have some success. So that makes sense at low ownership. Any other?
Well, I've got a little nugget on PJ Walker that came up because I was looking at Christian McCaffrey before the show, and last year Walker had 66 pass attempts, and something like 34 of them were under 10 yards.
Interesting.
So I mean, he has like 8 deep balls, but I mean, if you're telling me a guy's going to throw a Carolina quarterback is going to throw half of his passes under 10 yards, I like Christian McCaffrey. And,
maybe he'll throw some to his best player.
Yeah, like I mean, when Baker brought up Jonathan Taylor, I started thinking, why not Christian McCaffrey? Yeah,
that's an interesting call for sure. And we've got Christian McCaffrey at, what do we have him at? 8.2% ownership, optimal 9.6% of the time. Yeah, if PJ Walker is going to be throwing it to Christian McCaffrey, throwing it short, he's probably going to throw some to his best player. So that makes some sense. I like that call, playing some Christian McCaffrey this weekend. Sonty, you kind of already gave, when I say fade, I don't mean full fade, but it sounds like you're going to be mixing and matching, not playing all three of these top guys together. Any other fades that you want to call out, running backs you think are going to be owned by other people that you don't think you're going to play?
I'll just bring up a rhetorical point on Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, everything says you got to put him in, you got to jam him in. He's going to score raw points above just about anyone else on the slate. But I go back to just the Belichick dynamic of just, you never know what the hell this guy's going to do. And, if I were multi-entry player like Baker, I'd probably have like half Stevenson, maybe even 60% Stevenson. Then I also have like, what's the other guy, Pierre Strong, because Belichick could come out there and give Stevenson the ball 15 times and give the ball 20 times to someone we've never even heard of.
That's true. We've seen it before. That would not be the most shocking thing in the world. Yeah, I think I play backup running backs in good spots a lot more frequently than most people do. So that's an interesting one that I hadn't thought about, but maybe I should consider this weekend playing some Pierre Strong or the backup running back for the Patriots, and just hope that he gets more involved. I don't want to say I would hope for an injury, but an injury wouldn't hurt in that situation where you're playing the backup running back. So I like that call on Pierre Strong potentially. Alex Baker, do you have any major running back fades this weekend?
No, just because the chalk is too good. Like, I can't recommend a fade of any of those guys. I guess the only guy that's coming up is pretty overowned is Fournette. I think, all right, so his rushing share just hasn't been as high the last 2 weeks. So I guess and they pass a ton. So Fournette's been like on a really hot streak, so he's going to be popular. And I just feel like you might be better off going somewhere else.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense to me. All right. That will do it for running backs. Let me tell you guys about our sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks offers daily prop-based contests. There are no sharks at PrizePicks. Can't use an optimizer. can't have mass entry at PrizePicks, you pick a 5-player lineup that can net up to 10x your entry fee. Use your knowledge of multiple sports with cross-sport entries. So if you are somebody who knows football, knows basketball, knows hockey, you can do some parlays with all of those sports in the same parlay. Click the link in the description below to get 1 free month of Stokastic plus Platinum and up to $100 deposit match bonus when you sign up and make a deposit with PrizePicks. Alex Baker, I know you're usually pretty good about having some PrizePicks that you like. Do you have any pulled up right now, or do you want me to find some and read them off to you?
Yeah, I think I don't have any offhand that I'm looking at, but one guy that I'm under on, I think, is Breece Hall, where like he's been on a crazy hot streak, and I just see like a few ways that could not work out, like with his rushing yards. The industry is very high on his rushing yards, and he's splitting carries with Michael Carter to some extent, and then they're big underdogs versus Packers. So the volume is kind of questioned, and then also if Michael Carter gets a little bit hot, maybe he sees less rushing attempts.
Okay, so we've got Breece Hall at 57.5 rushing yards is the over-under. You take the under there?
Yep.
Okay, what about AJ Dillon? 51.5 rushing yards is his line on PrizePicks. We saw him not as involved last week as he usually is. He's also somewhat involved as a pass catcher. Would you be taking the under on 51.5 rush yards for AJ Dillon?
I always like myself an under, but this one, like if we're just going off the season to date numbers, let's see. AJ Dillon's gotten 46% of the rushing attempts this season. And you have to have him like significantly under that to get it under in this situation. So honestly, I feel like that line's pretty sharp, so I wouldn't touch that one.
Okay. Alex Sonty, I'm going to ask you one. So I've got Rachaad White at 17.5 rush yards. This is a spot where I would expect the Buccaneers to be running a little bit more than usual against the Steelers in a game where they've got a pretty wide spread. Do you think, do you have any interest in taking the over on Rachaad White at 17.5 rush yards?
No, I'm interested in Fournette. That's kind of a good way to hedge off my Fournette call. Because if Fournette doesn't get the opportunities, it probably goes down to Rachaad White.
We also have Fournette at 62.5 rush yards as a line. Any interest there, Sonty?
I'm slightly interested in over there. I mean, 65 is probably where I would put him as like a median, you know? So, I mean, I'm not looking at my model right now, but.
Okay, so 62.5. Yeah, I kind of like both of those overs for the Bucks rushers, particularly Rachaad White, just because maybe I'm a sucker because I don't do sports betting, but 17.5 just seems low to me. So that would be something I am interested in. But okay, that'll do it for some PrizePicks that we like. Let's move on to the wide receiver position. And as usual, we'll start with some chalk. Alex Baker, I'll throw it to you. Any chalky wide receivers that you think you're willing to eat that chalk?
Well, Cooper Kupp comes to mind. I mean, he's awesome every single week. Like he's going to be super chalky because of all the value at running back. But the way I'd kind of take advantage of that would be because by just playing Stafford along with Kupp, I guess, because a lot fewer people are going to have Stafford plus Kupp compared to just Kupp. And then looks like Stephon Diggs chalky as well, but like it's tough because it's a perfect game environment and he's been fantastic. So that'd be one I might eat.
Okay. How about you, Alex Sonty? Any chalky wide receivers that you expect to be chalky that you think you're willing to be at or above the field on?
I love Cooper Kupp for obvious reasons, but again, we go back to the chalky 3 running back build of everyone using Cooper Kupp. Now I've got 4 spots. I've only got half my lineup left to get different. And I don't know. It feels dirty to do that, but we have all this value. So Cooper Kupp is the first person I'd want to go to in terms of projection. But when I really think of it, you know, do I level myself off of it or what?
Yeah, it's tough.
Another guy that really will come up, and I think his ownership is going to rise, is Stephon Diggs. Just this game is so electric. And as much as Gabe Davis did last week, you know, his ownership is projected to be, you know, 12, 13, 15%. So I think Diggs is going to get a lot of late push in our projections.
Yeah, the ownership. So we only have Gabe Davis coming in at 7% projected ownership. That sort of surprises me after the game he had last weekend. I would think that some box score watchers would just kind of want to go all in on Gabe Davis, particularly in this matchup, but that's not at least what we're projecting currently. Whereas we have Diggs, as you say, at around 20% ownership. So that makes some sense to me to maybe go there. Alex Baker, do you have, I'll throw it to you and go to some contrarian plays. Any contrarian plays that you want to bring up?
Always. Yeah. I thought this guy was going to be contrarian, but apparently not. Rondale Moore, but since he's popular this week, I really do like him in that game. But so one guy I'm kind of keying in on is T. Higgins. Of course, everyone saw he completely busted in the showdown slate because he got pulled due to injuries. So I think that people may be hesitant to go back to T. Higgins, but like if he does play this week, I think we got to assume that injury is in the past, and the chance of re-injury typically isn't that high. So people may be overestimating the chance of that. And then as far as other contrarian plays, Adam Thielen, he's been off to a cold start this year, but I feel like it hasn't been that long since he breaks slates with like 2 or 3 touchdowns. So definitely in the range of outcomes, and people don't buy into what they haven't seen yet. So I think Thielen, you want to get him that first time it happens and not afterwards.
Yeah, I tried to do that this past weekend and did not work out, but I'm right there with you with Thielen. I'll be going above the field on Thielen for sure. Once again, going to some Viking stacks. Sonty, how about you? Any contrarian wide receivers that you want to play this weekend?
Well, a guy who I feel is under-owned greatly is Justin Jefferson. I mean, I don't know if he is on your stuff, but our stuff has him in the 8-10% range. This is one of the most electrifying players in football. You know, the matchup doesn't matter. He just gets the ball whenever. Kirk Cousins is just feeding him. And kind of like we were talking about running backs, sometimes when a guy's a top 3 play, he just gets fed the ball all game and you just play him. You just jam him in like Saquon Barkley. I think Justin Jefferson is getting fed the ball in that manner. And then kind of a low-owned play is I'll go back to the Bengals and Jamar Chase. If T. Higgins is going to be out, I haven't seen if T. Higgins has been practicing. He's not been practicing, correct? Do we know that?
Let me double check that. See what the.
But he's got double-digit targets. If there's no Higgins, it's double-digit targets right away. And again, it's in the dome. It's on the turf. It's against the Saints defense that isn't great. The Burrow Chase stack is going to be very low-owned.
Okay, so Ben Baby on Twitter says Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins is suited up for today's walkthrough. Hasn't practiced all week with an injury, so he's at least suited up for the walkthrough. I guess we'll have to await word on what his practice actually looks like. So yeah, that would definitely be Jamar Chase would be more interesting with T. Higgins out. And as you said, Justin Jefferson, we have him at just 10% projected ownership. Optimal 10% of the time and booming 14% of the time. So I do like Justin Jefferson as well. We like all the Vikings receivers, so we can just do a full Vikings stack with Cousins, Jefferson, and Thielen. That makes some sense to me. One guy that was brought up in chat is Brashad Perriman. Alex Baker, do you think you would have any interest with some Bucs receivers out for this game? Would you take any shots on Brashad Perriman?
Well, I think that might be a little bit too far, honestly. Well, he's been out the last 2 weeks, so it's going to be really hard to know if he does suit up what his workload's going to be. But when he was getting good snaps, it was because Godwin was out. Is Godwin like at risk of missing this game? Because I haven't been aware of that. So the other factor is if Julio Jones comes back this week, that's just another guy that could make it difficult for Perryman to see a lot of the time on the field. So that would be like if like 3 guys are out, then maybe Perryman would come into play for me.
Okay, yeah. So we would have to see some more news about players being out. I think Chris Godwin is playing this weekend. I don't see anything suggesting that he's not. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to Perriman quite yet. Alex Baker, any other contrarian wide receivers you want to throw out there?
Let's see. Russell Gage, His role on the Buccaneers has been pretty steady at being around like 2/3 to 3/4 of the snaps, and he's been targeted a good amount. So I think there would be some concern that maybe guys coming back like messes with his usage, but he's only 4,400, so that could just be a sneaky way to get some Bucks exposure.
Okay. Yep. Makes sense. Alex Sonty, I'll give you another chance. Any other wide receivers? I go on and on with these wide receivers because there are so many in play. We're not going to be able to name every wide receiver that we want to play this weekend, but anybody else that you feel compelled to call out here?
Everyone I feel like is 12+%. I feel like ownership is really efficient this week with receivers. Everyone's in this like 12 to 20% range. So there's no one really that I'm just chopping at the bit to get contrarian with, I think, because I'm leaning so heavily on this Burrow Chase stack.
Okay.
And using those 3 value running backs.
Yep. All right. Makes sense. And Alex Baker, did you have any fades that you wanted to throw out there?
Yeah. I mean, I think Tyler Lockett would be someone that comes to mind where he's just been on an insane hot streak. And I guess, yeah, he's projected to be highest owned receiver this week, which is pretty surprising. So I think that it's not that I don't like Lockett. It's just that there's on any given week, there's so many wide receivers that could absolutely crush. So I think that your best odds are playing the field there.
Yeah, and that we've got DK Metcalf also among our highest owned. He's the 3rd in terms of our ownership projection. So we're expecting a lot of ownership, which makes sense. That game should be a shootout. Top 3 of our top 5 in terms of projected ownership are from the Seattle Arizona game, and then Marquise Brown not much further down. So I guess a lot of people are seeing that game the same way I was on Wednesday, thinking that this is a game that maybe I want to play some. But if the field is going to get too much, I think it makes some sense to maybe go under the field there. Sonty, do you have any other fades that you want to throw out there?
Yeah, when 2 of the 3 highest projected owned receivers are on the same team, I tend to put a little red dot next to them in my notes.
Yeah.
And it isn't, to fade them or to cross them off. It's just be very careful because Lockett and Metcalf, one of them could dominate targets. They could both split targets. Geno Smith could also just wet the bed. There's so many ifs in this game. We didn't talk about Geno Smith in the quarterback section, but he's getting a lot of ownership, which means these Lockett Metcalf stacks are going to be very high owned.
Yeah, I think we can probably assume that they're going to be pretty high owned. Yeah, it's going to be a spot that, as you say, I agree with that. You just need to be careful about it. Think really hard about your lineup construction. If you do go there, maybe you need to get a little bit, avoid the chalk in other spots if you are playing those Seattle stacks. So I think that's a good way to put it. Just you need to be a little bit careful. All right, I think that we've talked about enough receivers. So let me tell you guys that don't forget you can find this show and all of our strategy shows on our Stokastic podcast channels, the main channel with our content, or individual sports channels. If you want to check that out, please leave a 5-star review on the Stokastic podcast channel. If you don't mind, it helps us keep these shows free. You can also find my high stakes episodes on the Stokastic podcast channel. So please do go and check those out. All right, guys, let's move on to the tight ends section. And we'll start with you, Alex Baker. Is there any chalk that you're willing to eat at tight end?
Well, I think with tight end, it's been a little bit tough this year to find good values. So, I'm not very tied or against any particular tight ends, to be honest. It looks like Mark Andrews is getting the highest ownership of the bunch, and he looks like a great play, so that makes a lot of sense. But I think maybe it's just another week where I'll lean towards just picking the tight end to stack with my quarterback because no one's really jumping off the page at me.
Okay. Yeah, you like to do that. And that's something that I've been doing more and more, just playing the tight end with my quarterback, because really the ownership isn't too crazy in any of these spots. It's pretty spread out, but also the optimal odds are pretty spread out here. So it really is hard to differentiate these tight ends too much because the ownership looks pretty efficient. So I think that makes a lot of sense to just play the tight end with your quarterback stack. Alex Sonty, do you see any tight end chalk that you are going to be playing this weekend?
The ownership isn't popping off the page. I mean, Tyler Higbee is kind of an obvious one to go with. I like it more with a Stafford stack, as Baker was talking about earlier, than as a standalone. But again, you got this dynamic with 3 cheap running backs. We shouldn't forget that. That's going to leave a lot of money for people to spend. So I think Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce are going to fly up our projected ownership sheets as the kind of hours go by. And I'm willing to play both of them. I don't care. I mean, I already talked about how much I like Lamar Jackson, and I could play him with Mark Andrews. And the fact that we're not really talking about Patrick Mahomes very much on the other side of that game. And as I see the ownership not really climb on Mahomes or Kelce, it kind of feels like maybe I shouldn't overthink it and just play Mahomes and Kelce.
Yeah, I definitely can see them merit to that. If we're not going to get a ton of ownership there, that does kind of surprise me. But I think Josh Allen has just been so good that maybe people are just inclined to go straight to Josh Allen and skip over and maybe play the Chiefs as a run back. But that would make some sense to me to play some Kansas City. We've got, Patrick Mahomes projected for 4% ownership. Kansas City, the top stack, 5.8% of the time. So a little bit of positive leverage in our top stacks tool on that Kansas City stack. That makes sense. What about some other contrarian plays that you like at tight end? I mean, I guess it's weird that Travis Kelce, does look a little bit contrarian. 6.7% projected ownership on Kelce. Any other contrarian plays that you like at tight end, Sonty?
If I'm not playing I like Zach Ertz a lot because Zach Ertz gets a lot of that red zone work. And Kyler Murray, we didn't talk about him. I want to fade him because his ADOT is ridiculously low compared to when he first came into the league. He's not running the ball at all. It's kind of baffling to watch. But that's a dynamic that bodes well for tight end. A guy who isn't really taking a lot of risks. His air yards are way down. He's not running a lot. He gets scramble and just dump it off to the tight end a bunch of times. So Zach Ertz projects pretty well in terms of raw points. In terms of ceiling, he projects pretty well. And his ownership is only in like the single digits.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense to me. And maybe a little bit of leverage on that ownership. You're hoping to get points scored through Zach Ertz instead of So I think it does make sense to go to Zach Ertz when you're not playing Alex Baker, you kind of said that you're going to be spreading out your tight end ownership and probably just stacking with the quarterback more often, playing the tight end with your quarterback. Are there any tight ends that you do want to call out as somebody who sticks out to you as that you want to play maybe even in non-stacked lineups?
No. No, I'm just kidding. Pratt Fryermuth, maybe, I guess. Kyle Pitts, if he suits up. Kyle Pitts is 4,200 and he's been ice cold this season so far, but that's another one where you don't want to necessarily give up too early. And the fantasy points per game average of 6 so far this year, I think that is going to really pull people away from him. So I don't mind just taking a shot there.
Okay. Anything else that you want to say about tight ends, Alex Baker?
If DraftKings or FanDuel could remove this from our roster construction, that'd be great.
They got rid of kickers. I don't see why they can't just get rid of tight ends.
Yeah.
All right. What about defenses? Any thoughts on defenses, Alex Baker?
I think taking the defense of a team that maybe going against a chalky team can be a good strategy. Everyone's going to be on the Seattle Arizona game, it looks like. So I see that no one's playing the Cardinals defense, but they do project pretty decently. So we've already named off the chalky players from Seattle: Lockett, Metcalf, Walker, and Geno Smith. So that's a lot of leverage you're getting.
Yeah, that's that for sure. That's really interesting. How about you, Alex Sonty? Any defenses that you want to call out?
My first thought was also Arizona because, I'm not really a team watch the games guy, but I did watch a little bit of Seattle the last couple of weeks to watch Geno Smith torch other teams. And I've faded him both weeks saying you should fade him because he's not that good. He's gambling out there and he's really gambling out there. And that should be really good for a DST. You don't need the guy to be awful. You just need him to gamble a lot. It's the Jameis Winston dynamic for sure that we see with him as well. So, if Jameis Winston suits up, that'll bring me back to, if I don't want to go with the Bengals passing attack, I'll go with the Bengals against Jameis Winston. I'll put any defense with a reasonable price against Jameis Winston.
Yeah, that's something that I've been doing for years, targeting defenses against Jameis Winston, just because he has such a high range of outcomes. He's a good quarterback and throw a lot of score a lot of points, but also does gamble, so gives up some picks. That's a good call out as well. I think that will do it for our defense talk, and let's just talk some GPP stacks that we think we're going to play. Alex Sonty, I think you mentioned several times that you like that Bengals stack. Is that your favorite stack of the weekend?
No, actually, as we've been talking, the Chiefs have become my favorite stack because we weren't talking about them at all. And this seems like a don't overthink it spot. It's Patrick fucking Mahomes. It's Travis fucking Kelce. At what point do I just not overthink it and jam that in and figure out how to get my single digits elsewhere? Because they're not going to be 15-20% owned. And maybe a little rule we should have is when Patrick Mahomes isn't the chalk, we just play him.
Especially in a game with a huge total. I mean, this is one of the
exactly
should be an electric game. Yeah, I like that. I like the story arc here too. You started with just all in on the Bengals, and by the end of the show, 1 hour later, you're all in on the Chiefs. I love that that transition there from the Bengals to the Chiefs. How about you, Alex Baker? Any contrarian stack? Who is your favorite contrarian stack for this weekend?
So this is one I don't think we've mentioned really, is Atlanta versus San Francisco. They do have a team total of 20, which is, that's reasonable for what's a tough matchup. So I think that the nice thing about the stack is there's really only 3 players that come into play here. So you got Mariota, London, and Pitts. So I think that I guess maybe you could also throw in Tyler Algier like as a deeper sleeper, but whenever the production's pretty concentrated between a couple different players, that just improves the stackability. So I think don't sleep on the Atlanta stack this week.
Interesting. I definitely was not anticipating you to throw out the Atlanta stack there. The Giants have been brought up several times in chat, so I'm just going to throw it at you real quick. Alex Baker, do you have any interest in playing Giant stacks this weekend?
Well, they're playing Buffalo or Baltimore, so they're going to have to be going for it. But the main issue I have with stacking against Baltimore is they're like really good at running the ball, which does create a situation where you could see like depressed play volume from the Giants. So Vegas has them at 20 points. One of the factors is going to be like, are some of the wide receivers out still? Because right now it's going to be tough to pinpoint who to pick. But if I think I saw that Wan'Dale Robinson might be
limited at practice, so he's
okay.
At least practicing in a limited fashion this weekend.
He's trending up, and then Galladay had been out, and is what I'm trying to remember. They have so many injuries. It's hard.
They have so many injuries. Yeah.
Okay.
Kadarius Toney's still out.
Tony is out.
Galladay's status.
Tony is out this week.
At least the last I saw.
Okay. So yeah, if Tony's out, then Slayton is interesting. But Slayton also only ran routes on 70% of plays last week. So you're not getting a full-time guy. And Richie James was around that same mark. So it's just like no one's really out there as much as you would like aside from Saquon.
Yeah, Art Stapleton says no on Tony or Galladay. Wait, I assume Tony and Galladay are out this week. I believe he's saying that both Tony and Galladay are out. So confirm that. Okay, that will do it then. That's good enough talk about the Giant stacks, I think. Alex Sonty, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was really fun to have you here. Where can people find you?
Thank you for having me on. I write a lot of articles at Roto Grinders. I write game previews for the week. I write a single entry article that will come out either tonight or Saturday morning, where I go through kind of what we did here, going through some projection plays, some value plays, and some contrarian plays.
Nice. And on Twitter at Alex Sonty, as we mentioned earlier.
Yes, I'm on Twitter as well, barking about stuff.
Nice. Yes. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. Alex Baker, any final words?
This is a fun slate because like last week we didn't have any like really awesome smash plays. This week we got 3 of them. So that definitely creates a new dynamic to play with. And I think my main advice is like, you don't want to feel overly comfortable and confident in your lineup because that means everyone else is going to have that same lineup. So just try to get a little uncomfortable, even though like you're gonna have a lot of these chalk plays, and hopefully get some good performances, and good luck this week.
Right on. All right, guys, stick around the Stokastic channel. We've got the Odd Shop coming on in about a couple hours with Aton, Lofty, and Ben. And then we've got the NHL Strategy Show with Josh Harris and Michael Clifford. Plenty of content coming up all weekend, NFL content, NHL content. We've got betting content. We've got DFS content. Stick around. Check out all of the shows that we have to offer on our channel. And while you're here, please do give us a like and subscribe so you keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Thanks for watching, guys, and good luck this weekend.